What's happening within the consumer durables sector, whether or not we're going to see further price hikes, what is the burden really of the RM costs, and whether demand has actually bounced back from the month of June or not. Let's take cognizance of all of that. We have with us Nilesh Gupta, MD at Vijay Sales, and Ritesh Ghosal, CMO at Croma, joining in on the show right now. Gentlemen, hi, morning, good to have you on the show. Ritesh, if I could start the discussion with you. Tell me, what are the current demand trends, and have we finally seen things begin to settle down after all the localized lockdowns which were taking place in account of the second wave of the pandemic?
So pretty much all our stores are open at least some of the days, some of the time. There are some restrictions in some areas for malls. There is we are hearing that Pune may have further restrictions coming back sometime soon. But as of now, pretty much all our stores are open, at least some of the time. In terms of, comparable growth versus last year, of course, last year was equally badly affected, but we do see very, robust growth, 40% plus growth across categories, with, categories like tablets and laptops growing much faster. Even in terms of customer footfall, again, last year is also had lots of lockdowns and shutdowns, etc. But still, for the same 1 week period of last week, footfalls were 2% higher than last year. So people are stepping out and stores are open.
Sure. Nilesh, what is your reading currently? Are things different than what they were at the start of the pandemic, same time last year? Because that's when everyone began working from home. Everyone needed that new laptop and that smarter, phone set as well, or that TV. Have things settled down? And more importantly, a year into the pandemic, everyone is also taking stock of how much the pandemic has actually pinched their pockets, with many job losses out there, no salary hikes. Are people getting more stringent this time around in their spending on white goods, or is demand status quo?
In fact, good morning, everybody. In fact, it's a very big surprise when we opened post the lockdown after the second phase. And we were also expecting the same thing, what you had just said. People would be a little skeptical on spending and people will not step out, because the phase 2 was definitely very, very aggressive and very painful for all of us. But the consumers are coming in. And as Ritesh has rightly said, we are seeing a growth over last year. Across the categories, and specifically in digital categories like laptops, tablets, and also we have seen a good growth in refrigerators, which is a very big surprise, because the same growth as we are not seeing in washing machines, but in refrigerators we have seen a growth. Televisions is a little not as good as last year, could be because of the price rise, but overall we are seeing footfalls coming in, and in spite of the suppressed time limits across the board, more or less, in few cities definitely we have the full time. But like you see in Maharashtra, we are still working on suppressed times. The business is happening. So it's at least a positive thing for consumer durable industry.
Morning, Nilesh bhai. Nikunj also joining in. My question is very simple, Nilesh bhai, which is, post the first lockdown, there was a compulsion which was at play. I can speak out of my personal experience. I was working from home and I had a need to buy another laptop, which I did. Post the second lockdown, I don't need that extra compulsive purchase. So what we saw in terms of a revenge shopping or a compulsive purchase after the first wave, that's not applicable after the second wave. Is that a differentiating factor?
Good morning, Nikunj. I'll tell you, there's a difference now. What you said is absolutely right. But at the same time, after the post-first lockdown, people thought COVID has gone. And now this work from home and learn from home will be for this 6, 7, 8 months. So a lot of people compromised. If there were 2 kids, they took 1 laptop and 1 tablet to work on. In some cases, if the kids were very young, even they made them do classes on the telephones. But with the second wave coming in and the second lockdown happening, people realize now this is a part of our life. So they did not want to rest. Now they said, okay, boss, let's invest in our laptops. If there are 2 kids and 2 working members, let's have 4 laptops individually and let's do it. I think that's the difference. Otherwise, there's no reason why laptop would grow over last year. Last year we saw 100% growth. This year we are seeing another 40 to 50% growth. It's a simple mathematics that people have realized that this is something which we cannot ignore and we need to buy it.
Ritesh, when you look at your customers, and I'm sure you look at the data, is there a trade up or a trade down? What is exactly the factor which is at play at the Croma stores?
See, in digital categories, there is a distinct trade up. Going back to what Nilesh also just said, people who bought a laptop last year realized over the course of the year and using the laptop that an entry-level device does not work. So we are getting a lot of requests. We are running trade-up schemes for people who bought laptops last year as well. Same thing goes for smartphones. The demands this new lifestyle is putting on smartphones, laptops, tablets, because of the video we are consuming, because of the video calling that happens, because of the heavy files that people are engaging with. A simple entry-level i3 kind of configuration in a laptop does not work. People have to trade up. So digital devices, same thing is happening in smartphones also. People who would earlier be using an 8,000 rupee smartphone are now going into the 15,000 plus specs. You definitely need a good front-facing camera. You need better battery lifetime, and you need more reliable Bluetooth connectivity, more reliable internet connectivity. So people are trading up across the board on digital devices. The trend is not so clear in home appliances because there are both kinds of things happening. There is a lot of entry-level demand. People who earlier thought, I don't need an AC, I don't need a refrigerator, I don't need a washing machine, I don't need stuff in my kitchen. Because of the amount of time they're spending in the homes are now, and because of the likelihood of more such eventualities in the future, unlike the first lockdown, there is no end to it that people are seeing now. People are seeing this as a break between, lockdowns perhaps. So there is a lot more, preparing for the future that's happening. For instance, in ACs, we saw, as soon we missed the season now because of lockdowns, but right after the stores were allowed to open, there is a huge pent-up demand for ACs and refrigerators, which we are seeing playing out, even though this is the season actually for washing machines, not for ACs. Okay, so people want to be prepared for the future. So there's a lot of entry-level first-time demand, which is driving the entry price bands. At the same time, people who perhaps had a semi-automatic washing machine or a front-load washing machine are now realizing, I need to do the job myself a lot of the time. Might as well have a fancier gadget with more intuitive features, all your new AI machine learning kind of stuff built into the machine, so that my effort and my involvement can be brought down further. So there are both kinds of demands playing out in the home appliances space. Plus there is a factor of price increase also playing out.
Okay. Nilesh bhai, so are we in for a good Diwali, Dussehra and a good Ganpati? Because those are the lead indicators which would tell us that where consumer demand is moving. Do you think it will be a replay of last year, or much of the purchases because of perhaps compulsive or revenge shopping is already done and we could be in for a very okay Thanda Diwali, Dussehra and Ganpati?
See, in case if the COVID fear goes away with the amount of vaccination which is happening in the country every day, and we do not see any more waves coming in, then I think we'll see a good Diwali. I would not say a bumper Diwali, but definitely we'll see a good Diwali. See, another thing, what I'm seeing, Nikunj, is now consumer durable is as good as essentials. So as people need food to live, they cannot survive their lives without the consumer durables and the laptops and the other things. So I think this is something which is going to be like roti, kapda, makan and electronics is what I think has become the way of life for everybody. So touch wood, if the further lockdowns don't happen, we do not see any major COVID wave coming in, I feel we would be good for a good festive season this year also, this year.
Seems, Ritesh, some of the online retailers seem to suggest that there isn't enough inventory to fill up the shelves. Is that a similar problem that you are facing, where there is demand, as you flagged off, but perhaps a supply issue?
Yes, absolutely. There are supply issues pretty much in all categories. because of disruption of the supply chain. Plus, of course, in some categories, the demand was not foreseen. So, for instance, in laptops, growing on 40%, 50% on a base which is already 100% higher, in a category which was used to single digit, low double digit growths, is a big shift. Microwave oven similarly. Your dishwashers was not even a category in India, so to speak. Now it's much in demand category. Similarly, vacuum cleaners. There are gaps in supply chain because of unforeseen demand, and there are gaps in supply chain because of disruptions of the the component supply chain. The disruption of the entire global supply chain. If you see, there are news reports of choke points in Chinese ports, etc. There are lots of issues on the supply chain side which are affecting, creating shortages on the shelves across categories.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to understand then what the impact is then, Mr. Gupta, when it comes to some of the smaller towns as well. What has the demand been like in the tier 2 and 3 cities, both online as well as offline? Has it matched up to what we've seen in the urban trends?
In fact, more or less, tier 3 cities, we are not there, but in tier 2 cities, it's more or less matching with the urban trends. And the demand is more or less across similar, because I think there, in fact, the digital transformation had not taken place earlier. So now I think the demand is going to increase more in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Sure. Also wanted to understand, Nilesh, from you as to whether or not, given that consumer goods companies have taken a calibrated price hike because, at their end, they're facing some raw material pressure as well. Do you think a steep price is going to hold the consumer back? You've talked about as to how there is revenge buying, there is that need-based buying. Do you think with that focus, the consumer will be able to absorb the price hikes that consumer good companies are taking?
In fact, what we are seeing right from the last 1 year, the prices have been steadily going up. And because of the raw material input cost going up and other factors, the transportation of the freight from China has gone up drastically. The petrol prices have gone up. So right from the last 1 year, we have seen the prices going up steadily. But surprisingly, the consumer seems to be unaffected with the price rise in the consumer durable segment. And I think primarily the reason being, our 70 to 80% sale is happening on EMIs. So what happens is when a price rise of 2 or 3% gets implemented, maybe once in 2 or 3 months, on an EMI factor, it's a very small amount increase. And I think that's what is not pitching in. So currently what we are seeing is price rise, the sales are immune to the price rises.
Sure. Ritesh, is that your understanding as well? Is the consumer not price conscious yet?
No, I think the customer is extremely price conscious, but like Nilesh said earlier, today electronics is an essential, and especially if you look at you spoke about small towns, data is like oxygen there, and you need a device to consume data. Your kids can't go to school, you can't go to work unless you're able to get onto a device which allows you to communicate with the world. So there's a fundamental shift in the role of the categories we deal with in the lives of people. Therefore, the premium being attached to being on a good device, having a reliable AC, for instance, or a reliable refrigerator in the home, it's totally different as compared to what it was a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, if your refrigerator broke down, you could step out and buy stuff. You could order stuff in. While today you want your refrigerator to be absolutely reliable, because you can't even allow a service person into your home to repair it. So it's a very fundamental shift in the importance, the relevance of the categories.
Sure, point taken. Ritesh, Nilesh, both of you, thank you so much for giving us that color on how white goods or consumer durables demand is currently on ground and what's the visibility going forward. Good chatting with you guys.